What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Martian and Ozzy podcast. This week, we are talking about the UFC card going down this weekend from the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. Jack Hermansson taking on Joe Pyfer in the main event. 14 fights. It's Super Bowl weekend in Vegas. Not so big of a fight card, but I think a lot of good betting opportunities, a lot of bets I want to talk about. So I'm excited to break this card down with my man Ozzy. As always, how we doing this week, my man?
Fat card. Happy Super Bowl week. Hopefully, we got some winners coming, similar to last week, which went pretty well. In the midst of our 12-week streak or whatever it's gonna be coming up here. So yeah, there's a lot of newbies, and it's a fight night card that doesn't have a lot of name value, but they're fights, and we got tape on these guys. So let's pick through them. Let's pick winners. Let's make that money.
Yeah, a few contender series guys that are kind of making their debuts or,
Uh-huh.
maybe guys with a few fights, but I feel like a lot of these guys, even though they're not that good, we still do have a lot of footage on them. That is a good point. So I think there's a lot of opportunities here that I'm liking. We're gonna get into those in a little bit, but last week is a pretty good week. I think we were on the same right sides as some, the wrong sides of some. Uh, and you definitely got the one we really disagreed with and went head to head. You got the much better of with your boy Radkey. Um,
Yeah, you
and
got cooked. You got cooked bad there. I mean, I told you this guy just doesn't have good striking. You're telling me he's got good striking technique because he throws a few kicks, right? You're getting big on the can kick narrative,
Right,
so
right.
had to correct you out of that. And I mean, easy winner. I mean, that's one of the best bets of the year, I would say so far. If they reran that, you tell me who's the favorite. So other than that, though. Imavov did well, and then lost on a few underdogs. Drew Dober, he was the live favorite in the third round. Went for a lateral drop, boneheaded move, and then Viviani. I would still make that bet again, and then obviously I had the closing live value on Azmat or Azat, whatever the fuck his name is. And he couldn't get it done in the third round, but would probably do it again. So whatever, is what it is. Good event. And I don't know. You have any other thoughts you can add in?
We had some collab winners with Medeiros, Lee, Immovov. That was good. And live bets were good as always. Charles Johnson, big live bet. And then the one thing I gotta, toot my own horn, Luana Carolina round three. I specifically mentioned that one on the
Mm-hmm.
podcast, 20-1. I actually hit it 23-1 right before it closed. And she, it says 8 seconds left, but she got it done. And got her first finish.
Congrats, little bro.
That was good. Your boy Randy Brown did it for Queens. So it was, I think, a pretty good card overall. Very profitable for me. I enjoyed it. But as I said earlier, 14 fights in this card, and I got a lot of bets on this one. So I'm gonna keep the analysis short and sweet. Give you all the bets, and get y'all out of here before this busy Super Bowl weekend. So we're starting things off in the Premier Division for the third main event in a row. Jack Hermansson taking on Joe Body Bags Pyfer in his first UFC main event, coming out of the Philadelphia area. We have in this one Pyfer's the favorite, minus 240, Hermansson plus 205. Both sides getting bet. We saw Hermansson shoot up to almost 230. Now he's back down a little bit. So both sides are getting bet. And I think this one is pretty straightforward. I think the Joe provides a lot of threats early. I think he's going to be much quicker and the harder hitter in the early rounds and has a good chance of knocking Jack out. But Jack is so much more experienced later in fights. Pyfer, I don't think has really been in many, if any, round threes. No, he has one round three fight. It was back in 2018, but he hasn't been in round three since. And that's so big, guys. Think about it. What just happened? Oh, Mike Malott. Mike Malott was up 2-0. He was doing great lately. He was minus 400 before the fight, and he just never fought in round three before. And Neil Magny, the king of round three and decisions, and he was able to just take that fight over. So it can't be undervalued how much cardio experience. And I'm not too high on Jack in this fight, except for that late fight experience. I think that he does have a chance to take this one over if he can see the later rounds. So for me, I think Joe probably gives him trouble, might even knock him out in the first two rounds. But I'm going to be betting Jack round three, round four, round five. The odds are all over 20-1, 20-1, 28-1. 31-1 for the 5th round, and Imma just, see how it plays out. I think there will be a good opportunity on Jack Live if he can get that leg kick game going of his, circle on the outside, throw leg kicks, and then just limit the pocket exchanges because if this fight gets in the pocket, it's gonna be Joe Pyfer landing hard shots on Jack, and I don't think it's gonna go too well. So, intriguing one, good main event in my opinion. I mean, Pyfer's got a good amount of experience. He's getting a good test in Jack here, so I see some people talking shit about this main event, but I like it. So, what are you thinking here?
Yeah, so first of all, Jack Hermansson coming off a bit of a layoff. He fought the last, I think, month of 2022. So he's
Correct.
out last year. After that submission loss to Roman, so he hasn't been as active, and I obviously think that contributes to the bigger money line price. You I do believe in Joe Pyfer. I do think he is talented enough to be in fights like this. And it's like kind of the different track in the UFC where Joe could have been on the regional scene much or for much longer, but with less promotions, with the opportunity of contender series and stuff like that, he kind of gets into the big stage a bit quicker. So the main thing when I'm looking at the fight is the fact that Hermansson on the feet, he wants to stay mobile, right? He doesn't really sit down on too many strikes. And being the case, I think that Joe will be much easier it's gonna be easy for him to um like going forward. Although maybe he won't get all the pocket exchanges that he might desire, he should be able to fight on the front foot, in my opinion. So I think that Jack, he's gonna be susceptible to the early strong start from Joe. And he's gonna have to combat that with using the clinch right early on, trying to get to Greco takedowns or stuff like that. But I think it's gonna be really difficult to do that to Joe in the early on. I do think that Joe is more composed than credit for. So I think that he might be able to manage that gas tank really, really well early, and then start catching Jack when Jack gets more aggressive. So for right now, the only bet that I've made and will probably add to is the fight ends by submission. Just feel that either guy could submit one another. We've seen Jack catch the leg locks. He's caught that guillotine that he's really good at. He could catch a submission from top position if he's raining down ground and pound, and Joe is wearing down. And then similarly, Joe could do the same thing. Club and sub is very live. Guillotine, arm triangle, rear naked choke, whatever may be. And I do like the Jack late stabs as well. But that's the only bet for me, plus 250. I think you can find it on FanDuel, maybe some other places. And I will pick Joe Pyfer to win the fight as well.
Um, a little bit of connection issues on Ozzy's end. Hopefully, it won't be too bad. I think it's just a few words here and there. So I'll let you know if it gets worse. But we apologize about that. But yeah. And then last thing, Jack round 3, round 4, round 5 submission 19-1 on FanDuel right now. I like that. And that's going to take us to the co-main event, featherweight division. A little bit of a late notice replacement here. Ige-Fili filling in for Leron Murphy, taking on Dan Ige. Ige is the favorite, minus 170. Fili plus 145. Your turn to start this one off in the co-main.
I was looking forward to the original pairing. I did like Leon Murphy there a bit, and overall, this is a fight that it makes sense that two guys who are veterans in the featherweight division, very durable, I would say. Although he does get hurt a little bit more often. Typically, he's in fights where it's hard to put him away. He's okay in every area of it. I'm having a hard time having a good read on it, just because I'm not sure, in the terms of the grappling, who's gonna have the upper hand in whether it be being unpredictable and initiating the grappling or being able to counter the other person's grappling. Um, Obviously we saw Danny Gay get in trouble a few times with Bryce Mitchell. We couldn't, whether it be scramble with him, lost scrambles. Obviously Ige-Fili is not at that level, but in scrambles, he's not the worst. He's just not great off his back. So if it's like a static position where Danny Gay is able to get a takedown. I do think he potentially be able to hold him down, and that's why I do lean his way. Just better camp, I feel. Ige, I think, has been improving, and he has a very high floor. But I honestly don't want money on it. Although I do see that a lot of people are on Ige. I think this is a potential trap spot or a fight where it could end in a split decision. Like I, I feel pretty good passing. If I were to bet it, I mean, I don't really want to lay that chalk on Ige, so I'd probably go Fili or pass.
Yeah, I'm just confident enough to take a bet on Ige at -170 because I thought about this fight a lot. Big fan of both of these guys, and I just think the striking dynamic is going to be very clear here, where it's going to be a little bit similar to that last fight I was talking about, where Fili is going to want to keep the fight long range, where he can use his kicks, his jab, his length, and Dan Ige is going to want to get the fight in the pocket. Now, I think when the fight's on the feet, that favors Dan Ige because I think he's the more powerful and more durable striker of the two. So I think Fili might give him some trouble with, kicks and jabs, but I don't think they're going to be like hard, hurtful shots. While if Dan Ige is able to get it in the pocket, man, he's going to be landing both hands of his, which both have power. And I just don't like the way the Fili, got dropped by Brito, got hurt by Wood. I think Jourdain dropped him semi recently. I just feel like he's in much more volatile striking fights. Now, Fili could hit some takedowns here. He does mix in and time his takedowns really well, but he's not the type of fighter to hold you down. While Ige, I think, has a pretty good first or two layers of takedown defense. It's just when he gets taken down, he's not good at getting up. But I don't think that's as bad here because Fili isn't the type of fighter to hold you down. So I think it should stay standing for most of the time, and I think that if anyone is finishing each other here, it is going to be Ige. So I'm on Dan Ige money line, and I also think the Ige KO at plus 325 on FanDuel. Last time I checked, I'm not sure if it's still there. Yeah, it's down to 310. But I think that's good too because it's just concerned with the way Fili's getting hit lately. He's the one taking this one on just about 2 or 3 weeks notice. So you know, and also with Fila, he just came off a knockout. Well, it had to have been what 4, 5 weeks ago. Let's check when that was. It was about 5 or 6 weeks ago. He just doesn't strike me as a guy who would get right back into camp. I think he's going to be taking some time off, and I think he's probably just taking this fight because it's a big name, it's a big opportunity. But I think Ige is going to be the more prepared one of the two and win the fight. So that's going to move us to the Premier Division again. We have Ihor Potieria making his 185 debut, taking on Robert Bryczek. I'm going to go with the Polish man making his UFC debut. Odds for this one have Bryczek -162, Potieria plus 142. A lot of action coming in on Igor here. He opened up in the 200 range, hovered around 170 for a few days, and then a lot of action came in on him the past, day or two. But I'm going the other way. I'm going with Bryczek here for a few reasons. First of all, Bryczek has absolutely murdered his past 5 opponents. I mean, he has put these guys in fucking comas, and not great opponents, but
Right?
I just
That's it.
I just
That's a good sign.
Good sign, exactly. While meanwhile, Ihor has been put into a coma a few times himself recently. Bryczek, I just think this guy's got good boxing combinations, man. His hands are fast, they're powerful. I think he knows how to find the finish when he has an opponent hurt. And Ihor, man, first of all, he's dropping down to 185 here. This guy is what 6'3". He was already, a pretty tall, lanky guy at 180 or at 205. Now he's cutting down 20 pounds on short notice. I don't understand how that's possible. How do you drop a weight class 20 pounds on short notice? On like 2
The
weeks
the the,
notice?
the biggest difference between weight classes in the UFC, 20 pounds, and he's and you add in just to tell and obviously I know I'll go in as well, but that Bryczek is a former welterweight. But this guy's chiseled. This guy, he's not a small middleweight.
No. Yeah, and I mean, it's actually 8 days notice, guys. How the fuck do you cut? I mean, maybe he was planning this ahead of time. I hope he
He
was.
doesn't look like a planner to me.
No, he fucking doesn't. He looks like he has very little thought behind those eyes, honestly.
Yes.
So I don't know, man. I think Brysek is gonna land some hands, and Ihor is gonna, pack his bags and not put much of a fight. I know Ihor battled pretty well against Bellotto, but I think one of Poteria's best strengths was that he was durable. He was able to take some shots, and that's what it takes at light heavyweight. You need to eat some shots and throw some back and hurt your opponent. But with this weight cut, with the short notice, with just how hittable he is in general, I mean, we can't forget, Nergumano teeing off on him, and Zetchiku. No, not Nzechiku. Somebody else. Oh, Olberg, stiffened them up right away. And I just think that Brycek is I don't think he's like a generational prospect, but I think he's good enough to beat Ihor, man. So I'm going Brycek round one KO, and I think his money line is good under 2-1.
Yeah, I certainly agree. I mean, right where you kind of mentioned all those names, that means like this guy's been taking damage. You know what I mean? Like in all his fights, there's been a lot of blows exchanged there. I don't think his defense is very good, and like you kind of said, huge weight cut. I'm very, very bearish, very, very bearish on this working out for him. So yeah, I have him. I'm gonna keep it short there as well. I think Ihor is just gonna be throwing a lot of hands, and his defense is not very good. So I don't think that he's gonna like and absorb well what's gonna be coming back in his direction.
Sounds good. And guess what, Ozzy? We're keeping it in the Premier Division here at the top of the card. Two studs, Brad Tavares taking on Gregory Hobocop Rodriguez. The odds for this one have Hobocop minus 240, Tavares plus 205. Was the Hobocop nickname an origination of you? I think.
I don't think so, bro. It's just because RoboCop, we call him Hope, and they have R's, they call them H's, right? They sound like H's in Portuguese. They just call him Hobo.
Interesting. Yeah, I did make that connection. I was just wondering if you were responsible for the originating it. But let's
Sorry, I
pass it.
won't take credit for that one.
That's okay. That's noble of you. Let's pass it
Yeah.
back to you, and you can talk about this fight first.
Yeah. So I mean, I think they had this scheduled a few other times. I think last year or something like that. I don't quite remember. But Brad Tavares had to fight against Weidman. I mean, weird fight. He leg kicked Weidman early. You kind of thought that, hey, maybe he'll finish Weidman. Absolutely not. It's Brad Tavares. Why would he finish anyone? Or attempt to. Um, but here, I mean, I don't really want to bet on Greg just because you don't really know what he's gonna like the game plan he's gonna put out there. Like the main way I would see him losing is him like trying to take Brad down and like grapple him and do stuff like that and it not working and Brad like just tiring him out, just being a strong ass Hawaiian, keeping controlling him in the clinch, whatever, out hustling him. But I don't really think that's probably gonna happen. I feel like RoboCop is probably going to just strike a little bit, mix in the kicks, eventually maybe look to close the distance and hit some kind of takedowns. But Brad is pretty hard to hold down. You don't really know about his jujitsu game just because it never really gets there. Like guys don't really take him down easily and then be able to control him and work from there. So I'm gonna go with a play on the over and the goes the distance in this fight. Brad's just tough. I know he's gotten knocked out a few times, but just RoboCop, I don't know, with some of his striking for me leaves a lot to be desired. And then I feel after the first round, he's more he as he's getting more fights under his belt, I think he's gonna be more cognizant of trying to win decisions. So if there's not a round one finish, I think I'm a big favorite on the goes the distance. So you don't need to lay too much juice on the over, or you could just take the GTD. But that's what I'll go with. And I'll pick RoboCop to win a decision. So I think that might be okay odds too. I think you might get like 4-1 or higher on that. So
Really?
I think
Yeah, I like.
they're favoring RoboCop to not favoring, but they're saying he's gonna finish. I don't think he's gonna finish.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I'm a little more inclined to think that Tavares is the value. But let's
Right.
see what you're talking about. No, it's G Rod points is only 180.
Oh my
Um,
bad. Yeah, whoops.
so
But either way. But the GTD should be good.
yeah, I mean, I think so too, man. Because Brad's style, I think, is pretty evasive these days. I think he's very, very comfortable with going to the decision. I think he's been to the decision almost like 15 times in the
His
UFC.
main weapon is like leg kicks.
Yeah. He's 13-4 in decisions in the UFC, man. I mean,
That's his main weapon. The judges.
that's a good record, man. I mean, that is a really, really good record. Um, and I think that I already have a bet on Brad here at 2-1. I don't think it's, tremendous. I'm a big fan of Hobocop, but I just don't think you can trust juice on this guy, man. I mean, I fucking bet this guy against, well, what's that guy? He was Ferreira, and he gets knocked out. It's just, I mean, Rodriguez. Okay, in his UFC run, he got knocked out by Ferreira. Chidi hurt him bad and split his head open. Um, Junyun Park had him rocked. I mean, he's just always in like volatile fights. So I feel if this fight stays on the feet, which I expect it's going to a lot of the time, you just have to be really concerned about Hobocop's chin the entire time. He can be in control of a fight, and then that one shot can shut his lights off. It's not like Brad has some titanium chin, but man, I just think it's a lot easier to make a 2-1 dog bet than it is to lay the 2-1 chalk on Rodriguez here. Um, and the last thing I'll say is I think people always get themselves roped into betting Hobocop submission. I've done it myself a few times. I don't think this guy is looking to grapple here, man. I think his style is boxing. I know he just did it and made it look real easy against Tululin, who's a bum, but I really don't expect like Hobocop to be searching for takedowns here. He might catch a kick and turn it into a takedown from that, but I don't think it's gonna be like a priority of his to take Brad down because Brad's got good takedown defense. Historically, a really good takedown defense at the weight class. So I think it's gonna be a striking fight, and I just think it's gonna be closer than 70% for Hobocop. So I got a small play on Brad here. Also, one thing I need to say is, Hobocop is black, Tavares isn't. This is something we did not mention enough on last week. And last week, guys, black fighters went 6-0 against non-black fighters on that card. The first UFC card of Black History Month, 6-0 for black fighters versus non-white fighters. So that's a narrative we really got to consider, and we have to mention. It would be not doing our due diligence if we didn't mention it. So, next fight is in the lightweight division. That this last narrative is not a factor in this fight. Michael Johnson taking on Darius Flowers. Odds for this one have MJ -138, Flowers +118. Um, you know, n- it's never there aren't many guys that Michael Johnson would be a favorite over in the UFC, and really aren't many who you actually want to bet him against. But Darius Flowers falls into the category of some guy I'm willing to bet MJ at slight juice at. I took him at -120 to win 1 unit, and I just think that sure MJ is a very mediocre fighter these days. He lets fights slip through his fingers. He's done that his whole career. But I mean, we're talking about an absolute massive difference in competition, and all of the guys who MJ has lost to in his career would all beat Darius Flowers. And I don't think Darius Flowers is a very serious fighter. He got into the UFC on a short notice debut versus Matthews. I don't think he made a good account of himself in that fight. And I just don't see anywhere where he's dangerous to MJ. I mean, MJ, you always got to be worried about his chin. But I just don't think Flowers is even that good of a striker to hurt him here. So I think MJ is going to outbox him, and hopefully he can keep himself together for 15 minutes and get it done. Because I am on him to win 1 unit -120.
Wow, great. Yeah, yeah. I also got MJ here. I think I got him like -130. Me, what you said, very true. Or he's to fight at 185. Now he's trying to make 155. To be able to maybe get a takedown or two here, but thing on top is he's just not really a mission guy. I was thinking about betting on Michael Johnson by submission actually, which would be funny for him. It would just be like very Michael Johnson esque for like there's like fighters that you'll see him like try to counter grapple, and you're like, no, 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 no. And I think Michael Johnson is due like one of those no, 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 yes moments where like he's trying to pull Gilly, and you're like, no, Michael, no, this, and then he gets it, and you're like, wow, like, and then you scream to the top of your lungs. So I'm gonna take some of that, but overall, I think from the southpaw stance, Michael's gonna be really good. He's quick. Um, excuse me. And Darius Flowers sometimes, like when he throws punches, he's kind of not really defending or ready to take a counter shot. So I think he's very available to be clipped. Michael Johnson also carries power late, like he usually he's been having okay later rounds, right, like in the Malarkey fight, for example. Excuse me. And what was one other thing? And if you even look back at Michael Johnson's fights, like of his last like 6 or 7 fights, most of them he's actually looked like the only one he wasn't was in the Clay Guida fight. So rolling with Michael Johnson.
Hell yeah. What could go wrong, honestly?
I'm pretty confident that it's gonna look okay until it doesn't. But
Yeah,
I think Michael Johnson. This is a good fight. They're trying to give Michael Johnson a win here.
I think so too.
I'm
I
pretty
don't know. I
sure.
just flat. I bet him at -120. So even money, 50 Flowers 50%. I wouldn't give him that much of a chance versus many guys on the entire roster, let alone a guy with 30 UFC fights. Even though he's had his ups and downs, even though he is 13-15 in the UFC somehow.
Preach, bro.
Um, but the guy, dude, he knocked out Dustin Poirier. Do you think a guy who knocked out Dustin Poirier is going to lose to Darius Flowers? Come on, that would be an atrocity. Um, Another fight, and you would not believe this, Ozzy, in the Premier Division. That makes it 4 out of 6 fights on the main card at 185. What a time to be alive. Rodolfo Vieira, Armin Petrosyan, a
Ooh.
fight I believe we talked about before, got canceled. Yeah, got canceled the day of. We're looking at a near pick 'em here. Rodolfo -118, Petrosyan -102. Two-way action coming in. It's bouncing back and forth. So people are betting both sides. Let's hear your thoughts on this one.
Great fight. Yeah, they poisoned those Brazilians poisoned my boy last time. Get them bags filled up, but it's back here. You got to pay a little bit better, more of a price. I think I had like even money 105, but I'm back on Rodolfo Vieira. Just like last time, I just feel that the guy, he's shown that he can. He's not a good boxer. He's not gonna win a striking fight, but he can not get finished. Keep his hands up. Jab with you, throw out some good shots, absorb strikes, not panic, which is very important. And then working his grappling. I think that's what he's gonna do here. ADCC champion, world champion, champion, freaking everything champion, ADCC champion, whatever you name it. This mofo won it. And I feel when he gets on top, he's gonna be able to strangle Armin Petrosyan. Armin's will give up his back to try to escape if he does get taken down. And a lot of his strikes very often are not very strong strikes. So Rodolfo, he's a Mack truck. He can run through some of those, potentially catch a kick, pressure him. This is the small cage. Last time it was going to be the big cage during that fight night in Brazil. So I think Rodolfo still a good bet here, -120, -115, whatever you could get there, and then potentially him by submission. What is the submission line? It is,
Gotta be like 180.
I think it was like 175. Where's this guy's fight? Um,
It
damn,
is
drop.
145, 180. Yeah, 180 on FanDuel.
Yeah, 165. You could find some. So yeah, DraftKings has 165. I probably would just play the money line, but yeah,
Yeah.
I got Hidalgo.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm on his money line as well to win 1 unit, -115. I would advise also passing on the sub. I just think that if sub is looking good at +180, so is money line. I think that there's a much better chance that somehow, um, I think the fight may stay on the feet more longer than we expect. And Petrosyan's the favorite if it strikes, obviously, but I mean, these guys are middleweights in the small cage. Vieira's striking has been improving. His jab was effective versus Chris Curtis. And I think that, Vieira having some success on the feet here isn't totally out of the question, while, Petrosyan having grappling success, I believe, is out of the question. So I think Vieira can actually, survive. And Petrosyan on the feet, I remember thinking this last time. I honestly should go bigger than to win 1 unit, because Armin's style on the feet, man, is a lot of being elusive and landing leg kicks and straight punches while retreating. He does not sit down on his shots. So we know Vieira can take a shot. And, we've seen him hurt before, and we've seen him power through it. I just don't think Petrosyan lands the kind of strikes that are really going to hurt and deter Vieira. So I think anything he lands, he's just going to charge forward and get the takedown. Remember, Sapabek-Safarov kicked Vieira in his eye, shattered his fucking orbital. Vieira just double-legged his ass and choked him out.
That was
So
awesome.
yeah, I mean, I just think that small cage, you're right, even better for Vieira. And I get Vieira here on the money line, so I might even add a little more. We're going to be moving down to the welterweight division here, where we have Officer Trevin Giles fighting a UFC debutant fresh off the Contender Series, Carlos Prates. Odds for this one have Prates as the favorite, -250, Officer Giles +210. Give us your thoughts on this one to start things off. Actually, wait, my turn. I think Prates is gonna knock this guy out, man. I think Prates' striking is legit. Long southpaw striker, really good kicks, really good knees. His straight punches are fast. I just think this guy knows how to mix up the targets, and he knows how to hit people and put them out. And Trevin Giles is never a guy who has dealt with adversity well. He's just a guy who, even when he wins fights, I feel like he just skates by. The Parsons fight just made it by. Delize just made it by. Sure, he beat Bevon Lewis and Luis Cassi. Clearly, those guys are bums. And I think Prates, even though it's his debut, I think that he's going to be lighting Trevin up on the feet. Trevin's going to need some takedowns, man. He's going to need to find a way on top position. And Prates' takedown defense hasn't looked good, but I think it's good enough. I mean, he got taken down in the Contender Series, but then he worked his back to the cage, hit a sick butterfly sweep, got right up, and then just started boxing Ramirez up and finished him. So I think it's going to be a Prates KO. And if you can find Prates KO at plus money, I think it's worth a play on that as well. So go ahead.
Yeah, I can't believe you're not rating the Kasi fight highly, the win. It's crazy. Yeah, so this fight here, I also like Prates. I do think he will find a chin from the south again, a southpaw, but a tricky one. This guy's got good kicks, finds knees, very active. I also think he has a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I don't think he hasn't won any fights via submission, but I mean, he'll go for like a front choke, or like he'll go for your neck. And I think Trevin Giles, he does have the ability to be live in this fight early, but I just really don't believe in him all that much to survive through it. Probably makes a bonehead decision, but I don't, I don't really think there's a great investment opportunity there on the money line. If you want to bet him by KO, totally understand that. Because I do think uh uh, Trevin Giles is going to get hurt at least one time in this fight, so I don't mind the bet.
Our boy Preston Parsons just rocked him bad in the first round, and his striking
Yeah,
is ugly.
yeah, we should have won that one.
We're going to the lightweight division next, where we have an absolute banger. Timothy Cuamba making his UFC debut. 4 days' notice, taking on Pauga-Guskov, making his UFC debut off the Contender Series
Take
as
it away,
well.
Martian. You should go on this one,
Oh,
brother.
hell yeah. So
This is
we're
all
big
you, bro.
big time Tim Kwamba supporters, been a fan of this guy for a while. And, a little story is that some woman who I was friends with in the martial arts community used to have a sexual relationship with one of Timothy Kwamba's opponents. But things ended badly, and I had a little bit of a vengeance against this guy. And then all of a sudden, Tim Kwamba was like a plus like 265 underdog or something against this guy. And I was like, oh, we're betting Kwamba. And he put a fucking beat down on him. Next fight in CFFC, he's an underdog again against a worse fighter than the first guy. So I'm
No
like, oh,
way.
we're riding that train again. Bet him and he wins again. The Contender Series, he's plus money. We bet him and we win again. So Tim Kwamba's been an underdog money line train for me, and I just think the guy's a solid fighter too, man. There are things about him I don't like. He is very cautious, I feel. I think he's very comfortable taking fights to win decisions, and at times he can make these rounds a little close. His Contender Series fight against Vogel, extremely close fight. I had him winning the first 2 rounds, but I mean, they could have really gone either way. I just think, but Tim is a really, really well trained fighter. I think he does everything really, really well. His boxing, his defense, his defensive and offensive grappling when he chooses to use it. I think he's really technically sound everywhere. It's just where he lacks the initiative a little bit, the aggression at times, which I think he could have some room for improvement. But he is moving up a weight class here. He's taking on Oki, who I watched a lot of footage on Oki. So he's coming off a knockout on the Contender Series, right? Against Dilvin Salvatore, who I don't think is any good. He's a former kickboxer who came into MMA, but doesn't really have an established MMA game. Before that fight, he was winning a fight against an 8-13 fighter, a 13-0 fighter who all his wins are bullshit. A 0-0 fighter in his sixth pro fight. This guy just has a padded record. He's fought a lot of bums, and his first MMA fight, it was almost 5 or 6 years ago, but he did get taken down in all 3 rounds. He gets stuck on his back, and we haven't seen him on his back since then. So I think this guy's cardio is up in the air. I think his defensive grappling is not good. And I'm not even overall that impressed with his striking. I think he's just beaten up and knocked out a few bad opponents. But I think this is Cuamba's best opponent, or it's Cuamba will be his best opponent to date. And I honestly don't think so for Cuamba. I mean, the guy I was talking about just now, Frank Wells, is like a CFFC champion caliber fighter. He's been in title fights. He's won a lot of fights in CFFC. He's a really good fighter. And Cuamba, beat him up. Mateo Vogel, good fighter. Michael Stack, good fighter. I think that Cuamba is actually much more prepared. And I like him as an underdog, even at the current price, plus 165. And if it weren't for the size advantage, man, I think this would be like a favorite situation for Cuamba. So I'm a little hesitant because of the size, because of the how short notice it is. But he lives in Vegas. He just fought a week ago. I think Tim is ready, and he's gonna win another fight as the underdog here, and solidify himself as a really solid fighter. So I got my boy Timmy Cuamba at plus 180 average here.
That's right. Trust in Dewey Cooper. Trust in Tim Kwamba, right? Tim
Trains with
Kwamba's
the
never
the Bostrop brothers. Bostrop
trains with the
brothers.
Bushra brothers. Basically Tim Kwamba's never let Martian down. John Martian, he's never let him down,
Nope.
and he's not going to do it this time because I'm also picking Tim Kwamba. Now, I feel that this could be a competitive fight. The initial fight, the Demir fight, I liked it to go the distance. I think there were some weird numbers with that, but I'm not sure where it was going to settle at. This one, not so sure, but I feel that the thing is going to be here is that if um Oki goes for Zulu Warrior, goes for the grappling, I just don't think he's going to be able to control Kwamba. And I feel that the activity of Kwamba is going to shine through. I feel that some of the fights that I saw from the regionals that Martian was talking about with my boy Zulu, just the grappling, I think, is actually lower level than people are aware of. And I think that he's going to have to win it with striking and putting on a big pace. But that's kind of Tim's kind of MO or where he's comfortable. So I really like him in this fight. I think this is a good fight for him to come into UFC, albeit on short notice. But let's get it done. Let's see.
Let's fucking get it done. It's also Tim Kwamba's birthday today. I
There we
think he's
go. Let's
I think
go.
he's turning
What is that?
25.
What is that? Aquinas?
25.
He's an Aquinas. What are we at right now?
Aquarius, you mean?
Aquarius. There you go. The
I
fuck do
don't
I
I
know?
don't know. What do you mean, bro? You're like the fucking zodiac sign expert.
No,
Let's
bro.
see.
I know one zodiac sign, bro.
Um,
Don't be capping. Sir
uh,
cap a lot.
I don't know what it is, but I
Sir
think you
cap a
might be
lot.
right. Let's see. Let's get to the bottom of this. It is
Yeah.
Aquarius. You're right.
Here
Good
we
knowledge.
go. Yeah,
Although,
you
yeah.
talking shit and I'm right. You
You
moron.
claim you didn't know what you were talking about. So don't be fronting. You're clearly very into astrology. Is that what it is? Astrology? Anyway, moving on to the one and only women's fight on the card, and it happens to be one of the best women in the UFC, Loma Lookboonmee taking on Bruna Brazil. Loma is a solid favorite, minus 270, Brazil plus 230 on the comeback. Your turn to start this one off.
Don't have a lot of takes on this fight. I think it's gonna probably go to the scorecards. Uh, I mean, Bruna Brazil, the last fight she kind of scraped by. I think she's gonna have trouble with the kicks. Loma and her activity in close. Um, but I'll pick Loma by decision.
Pretty
Yes, sir.
safe pick there. Can't totally disagree with anything. I don't really see like a great angle to bet the fight. Um, Loma sub has, taken a big dive because she submitted her last opponent. I guess maybe Loma round 2, round 3 because doing a little MMA math here, but Loma shut out Gomez 30-27 her, and Gomez knocked out Bruno Brazil. And I just think that Brazil, man, in that fight versus Shayna Bannon, she looked mediocre. I think Loma is going to eat her up, and she has a lot of things that could help her finish a fight late. She knees the body, she kicks opponents' legs and limits their movement, and she also throws a lot of elbows that could cause cuts. So Loma round 2, 10-1, round 3, 13-1. Those are the only stabs I see on the fight. And I think Loma could honestly finish on the feet or on the floor. So that's why I'm taking those late round props, but I highly doubt it's going to be in the first round. How about the last fight? She got her back taken by Elise Reed. She comes out and takes Elise's Reed's back and chokes her out. Incredible. And that's going to move us along in that one to the light heavyweight division. Devin Clark versus Martian Prachnio. Odds for this one: Dev Clark minus 222, Prachnio plus 187. Um, Not a whole lot of thoughts for me here. I think Clark should win the fight, but this guy, he's a decently skilled fighter, but he's not a good athlete at 205, which is bad for him. And I feel like he just fights beneath his skill level a lot. But his skill level or his skill set should be bad for Prachnio. He puts opponents to the cage, he pins them there, he takes them down, he lands a lot of good strikes against the cage. And I think Prachnio is just like too noodly with his footwork. I think he's going to get pressured. He's going to get, put his back to the fence, taken down. I mean, Vitor Petrino looked like he didn't even have the intention of grappling, but he's like, oh, I can just easily take this guy down and get him down over and over. And once Prachnio gets flat on his back, he's down for the count. So I think Clark should win the fight, but just not a guy I'm too interested in taking those minus 200 odds on. And I don't even need to see any props either. Clark's a horrible finisher, so I think it'll probably be a Clark decision.
Tee up with Clark by submission is for me. So I like Clark in this fight. Obviously, let's just talk about Prachnio first. Prachnio, his hands are not his main weapon. His main weapon are his kicks. He's more of a kickboxer, fights out of softball stance. He'll switch up. He'll throw spinning kicks as well. But Devin Clark himself has, I'm not sure his exact background, but he has a wrestling background. That's obvious. But he's got like some kind of like kicking background too, like some karate stuff, like something like that. I don't know what it is, but he has the ability to. What I'm telling you this is that I'm saying he's in and out. He's kind of mobile as well. He's not like one of those stocky wrestlers that they if they are on if he gets caught on his feet on the outside, it's not like he's a sitting duck because practice bang. He doesn't not want to exchange and Devin will too. You know what I mean? He's not like a guy that can't move on the feet. So he is a very well deserving favorite. He also doesn't really got Devin Clark's not a bad fighter. There's not that many areas he has a weakness in. Other than against elite fighters. So I just think Prachnio is not really is he a UFC level fighter? I guess, but he's not a reliable guy to either come back if he needs to win a third round, or like get like a late finish or any of that stuff. So we're fading his ass. So it's Devin Clark.
7-1 on sub on
It's not
DraftKings.
bad, pretty good, solid.
Has he
That's
ever
not big.
submitted?
Yeah,
I think he guillotined somebody in the UFC,
he's
didn't he?
got. Yeah,
He's
he's got
got
a few submissions.
1 win by sub in his career, 4 sub losses. His
Yeah, he's due.
1 win by sub was in 2015,
He's he's
nine years
due.
ago.
There's gonna if Devin Clark time that Devin Clark wins, there's ground time here. So
Yeah, that's true. Welterweight division next, Philadelphia's own Jeremiah Wells taking on Max Griffin. Odds for this one have Wells minus 149, Griffin plus 129. We got Joe Byfer's teammate. You got faith in the Philadelphia native.
love Jeremiah Wells. Unfortunately, had him in his last fight. That one hurt. I think he was like a 20-1 or a minus 2,000 favorite live there. So
Correct.
I mean, yeah, I mean, he just shown you saw a lot of different things from Jeremiah Wells in his UFC career, right? He had that wild fight against Samuelsberger, but what has been evident is that one, he'll go for takedowns. He will initiate takedowns and it's hard to stop him with the takedowns, and then you can't really get up because he's kind of he's got those long arms, but then he's also like he comes from that really actual jujitsu background. So even if you think his technique isn't good, it actually is. Like he actually is doing the things that reward and keep fighters down, and then he still has like the ground and pound. Like we haven't really seen him because what's it called? Harris was kind of like trying to get up, but he was hitting. You know, he was dropping ground and pound. But this guy, Max Griffin, I feel that Max Griffin, a lot of guys haven't tried to grapple with him, and he slowed down a little bit in his fights. He's quite a bit older. I just feel this is a good matchup for Jeremiah Wells. I think that this is a fight where he could win if he needs to on the feet, just being mobile and kind of like blitzing in. But I'm just confident that he will have grappling success in this fight. So I got him and at this minus 150 in that neighborhood number for a plate for sure.
Yeah, I agree with just about all that. Also, minus 149 for me on Wells to win 1 unit. And I think these guys are actually pretty similar fighters where they both hit pretty hard. They both like to mix in takedowns. The one difference I see between them is that when Wells hits his takedowns, he has a much way more legit top game. And he keeps opponents down and he knows how to do that. And I also think that they're both a little susceptible cardio wise. We saw Wells kind of wilt in his last fight and get choked out there. I mean,
He didn't wilt there, dude. He got
I
caught.
I was gonna say he really didn't look like he was slowing down. He just stuck his neck where it didn't belong, and Harris wrapped up that nasty anaconda armpit
That
anaconda.
he's famous for, that he's really good
Yeah.
at.
So I mean that was a shocking result. I bet Harris there. I thought it was a terrible bet. Thought he had no chance of winning, and then all of a sudden he locked up and the fight was over. So, um, but Max Griffin in round three lately also. I mean, I feel like he's been in a few fights where it's 1-1 heading into the third round and the fight's on the table and he just doesn't do much in round three. The Griffin fight and the Morales or the not the Griffin fight, the Magny fight.
Magny fam, yeah.
And I just feel that he's not really shown up in round three lately. And I mean, he's pretty old too. He might be what 38 by now. Yeah, he's 38. You know, Wells no spring chicken either 37, but I think he's got way less miles than Max Griffin does. So I could see both these guys hurting each other on the feet. I could see both of them taking each other down, but I think Wells is way more likely to land takedowns and to keep the fight on the floor once it hits there. So I think Wells has more finishing equity, and I am leaning with him to win the fight. You know, I think under 185 is good for Wells for a play here. So that's going to move us along to the light heavyweight division. Probably my favorite money line of the card, Zach Pauga taking on Bogdan-Guskov. Odds for this one have Pauga minus 129, Guskov plus 109. So Guskov could finish Pauga here. In the first round, he could land some punches, hurt Pauga, get him out of there. I just think I would be really surprised to see Guskov win outside the first round. I mean, we had some doubts about if this guy was legit or not coming into his Volkan fight. And I know Volkan's a good established fighter, but Bogdan did nothing good in that fight, man. I mean, he was getting hurt right off the bat. He got taken down and submitted really quickly. He looked like he didn't have good composure or cardio, and I just think this guy's a total fraud. So it's not like Zach Pauga is some, you know, bona fide established guy, but I think he's actually a pretty good fighter for being as inexperienced as he is. He is 35. He got into MMA really late, but he's a good athlete. And I think he's learned on the job pretty quickly. And I think this guy actually has a decent eye for the fight as it goes on. I think he can make reads. He can change up the range of the fights where if he wants to maybe mix in some clinch, he has a good clinch game, pin you against the cage, maybe mix in a takedown, make some reads at distance. And I think he got pretty unlucky to lose that Bukakis decision. I mean, that was a total coin flip decision. Uh, actually, I think the judges or the MMA media, it was like 14 out of 17 people had the fight for Pauga there. So I think that's kind of factored into the price here. And man, I just got to go with Pauga. I think that he's in a little danger in round one, but if the fight gets out of round one, I think it really should be pretty easy work for Pauga. And I think he's gonna be a problem for Dushkov at all areas. Distance, clinch, maybe he can hit a takedown. And I'm just looking to fade Guskov being a fraud again. So under minus 150 is good for Pauga, and be ready for live lines too as well. I have to win 1.5 units at minus 123 on Pauga here.
Yeah, interesting. This is actually an interesting fight for me because I feel this is one where you're trying to calibrate who's on what level. You know what I mean, right? Like we don't have that much information on Guskov, but there is footage on him. And then Pauga, uh, the, the interesting thing, Martian, here is that last fight we thought we were getting a steal, a deal on Pauga, right? Right, that he was plus money against Buckus. And that's why we felt extra robbed because we not only like that fight looked like it should have been a pick 'em fight, but we got a big plus number on Pauga, if I remember right. And I thought that I just thought that that was weird. And then the market rating again is coming here, and although we are low on this Guskov guy, again a fair line on Pauga, so something to consider, I would say. But I also like Zach Pauga. The total overall to me is kind of interesting because Zach Pauga fights sometimes have been like slow to develop. He's maybe, uses the clinch a little bit. They're in the small cage here, and sometimes those big guys um can draw out a fight sometimes. But I potentially like Zach Pauga to actually get a finish here. So I'm kind of leaning towards not going too hard on the money line just in case he does hit the bed, he gets clipped with a punch. I think Pauga used to be a heavyweight, right? And then he started cutting it down to 205. So maybe his durability might not be there. So I don't know, but I'm just gonna try to split this a little bit. Try to get on the plus money side of a good, like a overperformance by Pauga and take that. Just because looking at the fact that they have the total only lined at 1.5 at Pick'em. He's a little bit of a favorite that I think should be a bigger favorite. I think the KO line is pretty fair at almost 3-1, right? You get a plus 275, 250 on it. So I'll have some of that, but I also do like the Zach Pauga to pick up a win here.
Sounds good. We are aligning on most stuff this week, and that's going to take us to the featherweight division. Hyder Amil taking on Fernie Garcia. Garcia moving up on about a week's notice here, moving up a weight class to 145, 0-3 in the UFC for him to start. And the odds for this one are minus 200 for Amil, plus 170 for Fernie Garcia. Fortis MMA fighter. I feel like we haven't been seeing too many Fortis guys, but they got Fernie in action here. What are you thinking about this fight?
Yeah, I've been low on Fernie. I think I faded him on all I think he's had 3 fights. Well, his last one, right? He was like a big underdog. Didn't fade him there. But other than that, have faded him for the most part. Don't think he's very good. I feel that obviously he's gonna be undersized here. I think there might be a reach disadvantage as well. But the most part is like Hyder. He's kind of like I would say like a safe fighter. Like he goes into neutral positions well. He has like a high motor, keeps working, keeps shipping away. It is well rounded, so I don't think that Fernie is going to be able to like mix it up on him and have him uncomfortable. We saw his LFA fight that he defended a lot of those choke attempts, right, by what's his name, Cody Gibson, who I would probably pick to beat Fernie in a fight if they fought. So yeah, I think it's a deal. I think like mine. I would probably bet the money line up to like a minus here. So I still think there's still a little value to be had on the Hyder Amil side.
Well, fellas, I know everyone loves when we go head to head, like with Urbina and Radke last week. That has, good benefits about it. But this week, we're seeing eye to eye, Ozzy, because I got Hyder Meal here as well.
Big.
I got on him at minus 190. Yeah, a decent sized bet about to win a unit and a half. And I just think, first of all, Fernie's taking the fight on short notice, moving up a weight class. I don't think he's big for the weight class at all at 135, and I think 145 is just going to be bad. He's going to be way undersized here. He's not going to have a training camp. And, he's clearly fighting like for his job. He was thinking maybe I won't get offered a fourth fight, but let me take this fight and, keep my job for a little bit. And Fernie, first of all, he finished Josh Weems on the Contender Series, right? He knocked him out, but before that, he had like 5 decisions in a row, I think. Yeah, his wins, 5 of his fights went to the decision in a row. The guys who he finished, 12-30 record, 6-10 record, 1-5 record, total bums. So the really only like legitimate fighter he's ever finished was Josh Weems, who's not that good. And I just think it's really low percentage that he's gonna finish Emil here, man. Emil is bigger. He's tough. He was fighting what's that guy's name on LFA who gave him a good fight?
Cody
Gibson.
Gibson? Yeah,
Yeah, took
Gibson.
him down, took his back, was in a deep, deep choke, and you just saw that Amil was thinking clearly. He was fighting the hands. He pried that choke off. He fought back and he knocked him out the next round. He just seems resilient to me. I just don't think that Fernie has a good chance of finishing this guy. And on the feet, or on in terms of a decision, I mean, Hyder just I feel is going to work hard. We saw how hard he worked in that fight on the Contender Series versus Kortmaz or something, Sunmez. Man, I mean, those guys were gassed in the first round, and that was just such a battle of attrition and just grit. And Hyder stood up from takedowns. His cardio was incredible. He had good initiative, and he struck me as a guy who knew how to win rounds. He knew how he was stuffing the takedowns. He was sprawling, and then he was landing some elbows and punches, just landing some damage to get some memory in the judge's eyes. And then he won a unanimous decision because of it. So I just think it's going to be really hard to outwork Emil for a decision, and I think it's going to be hard to finish him as well. So I just have a tough time seeing how Emil loses this one. I don't think Emil is going to do a whole lot good in the UFC. He's getting in at what 34, 33. So I think he's going to have a tough run, but I think he should be more than good enough to beat Garcia here. So I like him under 70%. And the last fight on the card, Daniel Marcos taking on Olichi Lang, or Aori as we like to call him. Marcos minus 257, Aori plus 217. This is a fight that I think I'm the least interested in on the card. I think Marcos should win. I think he's being a little too heavily favored here. I mean, guys, it was pretty unanimously agreed that he robbed Davy Grant. I would say that was probably one of the worst decisions of all of last year. So I think that's got to be favored into his line here. I don't think this guy is that great. I mean, he's a striker, right? He doesn't grapple much, and he's a good striker. But I think Aori is going to keep it competitive. So I would rather bet on Aori, but I just don't see enough you know, to like this guy here. I'm still kind of traumatized that he got knocked out by Ayman Zahabi of all people. So I'll
Who
pass on this
called that
one.
one? Who called
I'll
that
pass on
knockout?
this one. I don't remember. But
You
I
don't
lost.
remember?
I lost
You,
on Aori, so fuck him.
you had him. You had him in that fight. You're an idiot. So yeah, I had Eamon's a hobby there. No scorecards by knockout. You know the works. Money line, all that. Damn, Martian, I can't believe you did that to yourself.
You came that was one of like the conclusions you came to after the podcast. Like you said, like, yeah, I don't know, pick 'em fight, and then Friday you solidify your opinion. And so don't be doing a full victory lap.
Okay, but I mean, listen, hey man, fuck, dude. What anyway?
It is what
Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, I would tend to agree with the fact that hey, why is Marco's this big of a favorite? I get it, he's never lost, but like he just like I feel like the margin for him could be big if he's able to work the leg kicks because Iori's not a big kicker, but I feel like Iori brings a little bit of variance into that. I haven't really seen like a lot of chaos in Marcos fights, but I like Marcos. I think he's cool. My uncle's Peruvian. I root for him. I root for what's his name, Michael Morales. I feel that body work could be big here. But I think maybe trying to is the under here any good? Usually these 135 fights, I the totals for the unders are like a trap, I would say. I need to look at what the historical averages for the for the under. So 155. I don't mind that. I feel like there's potential here for finish either direction because I think there's going to be pocket exchanges in this fight.
I like the sound of that. I agree. And
Yeah.
Marcos, he kicks the legs. He has decent attritional work as well. So
Hmm.
I think that's not bad. Um,
But
let's get to the
overall,
next.
there's going to be a favorite heavy card for me. I would say I don't think I have. I don't think I have bet on or will bet on a single underdog. I mean, I'll have some props that'll be
Cuamba.
dog money. Oh, Kwamba, yes, excuse me. Thank you for reminding me. But yeah, I think it's gonna be mostly fade. I'm gonna try and put a few of these in parlays as well. I feel like this is a fight card that I could potentially, famous last words, but sweep.
Mm.
You know how some get the brooms out.
Oh yeah, I meant to mention that at the beginning of the podcast, but we lost a valued member of
No,
the MMA betting community this week. I'm sorry to see him go, but I think that he'll crawl back very very soon and continue his run of misery and depression. And we will eventually we'll see more content from our fallen soldier. So
listen, I want the broom. I want the broom, but in a good way. I feel like we could get the brooms out in a good way, listeners. What else? Before we go, we got fuck Mary Kill next, right? Fight
yeah,
numbers,
I think
guys.
you should give me the three to start.
I will. Fight numbers, guys. If you guys play DraftKings, John Kelly just launched that. Used a lot of great tools. I've been using it myself. This is a big 14 fight card. I personally don't like those cards for the DraftKings, but usually when there are more combinations, easier to win first place. And yeah, that's about it. We might be doing some other stuff. There might be some other things in the works. Wink, wink. Yeah, let's go. So let me give you your three, Martian, for your FMK. All right. So first, let me give you the main event of the week, my personal main event. Michael Johnson, okay, is number one for you. Okay.
Wow.
Number two for you is Jeremiah Wells. And then number three, I'm going to give you the under 2.5 in the main event, which is minus 150, let's say minus 155. So between those three, all those are juice. You're laying a little bit of juice there. FMK, those three.
Mm, damn, this is a good one. This is a good one. Well, I'm gonna get my kill out of the way, and that's the under 2.5. I just think
Mm.
that's very, very Pyfer correlated, and minus
Mhm.
155 that puts it at 60%. I don't like that. So,
Okay.
that leaves me to the between the fuck and the Mary. Two tough ones here because I think that the Max Griffin is a much better opponent than uh Flowers is, but MJ is obviously less reliable. So I'm gonna have to fuck MJ and marry the boy from Philadelphia, Jeremiah Wells. That's
Let's
gonna
go.
that's a good one. Okay, so
Perfect.
we're gonna give you some to start things off. Okay, let's see here. We got. I'm gonna go with the goes the distance in the Brad Tavares Hobo Cop fight at plus 110.
Okay.
Then I'm gonna give you the Vieira money line, Rodolfo Vieira money line minus 118. Then, or let's say 115. And then last but not least, Zach Pauga money line minus 122.
Okay. What was the first one again? The goes the distance
GTD
in
and
the
Robo.
Robo, Pauga, and what's the middle one?
Vieira.
Vieira. Okay. So I'm gonna kill. Let me get my kill, my first kill out the way as well. I'm gonna have to kill. I'm gonna probably have to kill the goes the distance in the RoboCop fight. Even though I like it, I just think that I just like the other two ones more. Just to be honest. And then I'm gonna fuck Zach Pauga. And then I'm gonna marry the black belt hunter. Get that guy on my side. We love black belt hunters, right? That's what we aspire to do all the time. Hunt black belts. So I think he's gonna win this fight, man. He's been training for this fight. I think it's very obvious what to do on this. So that's who I want to marry. Who I want to stake my claim to. The guy who's gonna follow the game plan.
I like the sound of it. That is gonna do it. I got the Chiefs winning with a score of 30-23. And
Absolutely.
the moment on the field with Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce is gonna be probably the biggest moment in pop culture history.
Okay, it's gonna break the internet. You think?
I'd say so.
Okay.
I'd
Yeah, I
say
mean, I
so.
definitely got the Chiefs as well. 30-17. We got to keep the 13 narrative strong. So I'm going 30-17. Chiefs win. Super Bowl MVP Rashi Rice.
Wow. I have
Rashi
no
Rice.
opinion on I'll go Mahomes, obviously, but, yeah, it'll be a good one. So, a lot of bets on this card. Hope you all enjoyed it, tailed some action. Hope we get some winners this weekend. Hope you all enjoy the Super Bowl. We'll see you before you 98 next week.
Big one next week. Big one.
one.
Next week. Big one.
Big pay-per-view. So thanks for listening, everyone. Hope you all have a nice weekend. We'll see you all next week. Peace out.